one and done. Jerod Mayo has already been fired by the New England Patriots, and it came with some drama at the end too. Prior to Week 18, the New England Patriots held the #1 overall pick at the 2025 NFL Draft. The Patriots then beat the Bills to drop down to the #4 pick. Not only is the tank ruined, but the Patriots are back on the market for a new head coach. It's a pretty weird, confusing move. Mayo really had nothing to work with and was essentially hung out to dry. The Patriots are also just a really interesting opening at head coach. New England has a ton of cap space and hopefully a franchise quarterback in Drake Maye. Safe to say, coming into this season, there weren't really very high expectations for the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick was the head coach for a long time, and he's arguably the greatest coach in NFL history, so losing him and Tom Brady was going to cause a reset for the franchise. Jerod Mayo ended up being the replacement for Belichick, and clearly Robert Kraft wasn't satisfied. But like I said before, Jerod was put in a tough spot. The whole roster was pretty terrible. Jacoby Brissett was the Week 1 starter, but he was awful, so the season was really just about waiting for Drake Maye to play, because after all, he was the priority. The Patriots selected him 3rd overall at last year's draft, and he eventually took over after New England started 1-4. Surprisingly, somehow New England beat the Bengals in Week 1. Cincinnati was expected to be good, but obviously, as we know now, definitely didn't live up to it. But who knows, maybe the Patriots were better than expected. The Patriots forced overtime against the Seahawks the next week, but it all quickly fell apart with a 24-3 loss to the Jets and losses to the 49ers and Dolphins. New England also dropped to the Texans and Jags. Then the Patriots did have probably their best stretch of the season, winning 2 of 3 over the Jets and Bears, with an overtime loss to the Titans in between. It was a big show of promise for the future, but the Patriots followed it up with 6 straight losses and a bye along the way. New England lost to the Rams, Dolphins, Colts, Cardinals, Bills, and Chargers. And all of that set up a regular season finale at home against Buffalo, where essentially New England just needed to lose. The Patriots did start Drake Maye in this game, but he only played a single series, and then it was Joe Milton who took over. And with the future on the line, Milton balled out. He threw for 241 yards and a touchdown and rushed for a touchdown. It was super fun to watch, but it came with a big price. Buffalo went hard on tanking, starting Mitch Trubisky and later even benching him for Mike White. The Bills obviously didn't want to win. Why? Well, the Bills probably wanted to ruin the Patriots draft stock, and it worked. But Milton did look good. Milton is a guy with a bunch of boom potential, but he could also just be a total bust. It was totally worth not risking Drake Maye getting hurt, but now that they've won the game, it does overall hurt now. It gives the exact same vibes as when Lovie Smith was fired after 1 season coaching for the Texans. He led the Texans to a 3-13-1 record and beat the Colts to lose the #1 overall pick in the regular season finale. Of course, it's always hard to know what the future might bring. It seemed to have worked out for the Texans because they ended up with CJ Stroud instead of Bryce Young, but it seems pretty clear that Lovie got fired for it, and it was just a bad season. But he literally coached the Bears to a Super Bowl. Mayo hadn't even been a head coach before. The Patriots were never going to cede with what Mayo was given to work with. The roster just stunk on both sides of the ball. The offensive line was bad, the offensive weapons were terrible, and so was the coaching. Demario Douglas was listed as the #1 with Kayshon Boutte and Kendrick Bourne. It was likely the worst wide receiver room in the NFL, and the defense lost a lot too. Christian Barmore missed a ton of time, and Matthew Judon got traded before the season even started. There really aren't many positive things to say about the roster, and unfortunately for Maye, the other rookie quarterbacks have all had better situations. Caleb Williams had elite weapons around him. Jaden Daniels had really good coaching that made the best out of his talent, and Bo Nix had a good offensive line. Drake didn't have a good line, or weapons, or even coaching. I mean, it wasn't ideal, and yet he still looked pretty good. He passed for 2,276 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, and rushed 54 times for 421 yards and 2 touchdowns. There's a lot of reasons to believe and be hopeful that he's the future. Yes, I know, Mac Jones also had a good rookie season, but there's a big difference here. Drake succeeded despite a bad situation, and he clearly has the talent to develop well. So with Drake, I feel like the future has plenty of promise. When it comes to Jerod Mayo getting fired, it seems like the consensus around the New England Patriots fan base is that everyone's happy, including myself, but that doesn't mean that I hate Jerod Mayo. I just don't think that he was ready for the job yet. Was the product that he put on the field Any good at all? Absolutely not. But was he really given a chance to succeed? Also no. So it's hard to look at the Jerod Mayo tenure and say that he solely was the reason why this team sucked this year, because I don't believe that to be the case. And that's why I respect Robert Kraft for owning up to it and saying that he essentially put Jerod Mayo in an unwinnable spot, because that's exactly what it was. I do believe that no matter what head coach you put in there, that this team probably wouldn't have done that well. Would they have potentially won a couple more games than they did this year with Jerod Mayo? Yeah, probably. But more so than Jerod Mayo leaving, I'm excited for a whole revamp of the coaching staff in general, specifically getting rid of AVP. I'm not an AVP believer. I'm sorry. I really hated how the offense looked this season at times. I hated some of the decisions that he made at times. I'm sure he's great at his job, even though he got fired from it in Cleveland a couple years ago. But yeah, we need a really good offensive coordinator that can help develop Drake Maye. This season was a joke, but honestly, I left this season with some hope. Even though the Patriots were constantly losing, and losing really bad at that, I still have hope for the future, and that's solely because of Drake Maye. Even with the Patriots losing consistently, he's showed week in and week out, even though they might have been small moments, and that's really all I cared about this season. Now, with that being said, obviously in the future, for him to continue to develop and for the Patriots to get better, they have to add talent around him. And how do you do that? Well, by paying them through free agency or just signing players, or the NFL draft. And what better pick to have in the NFL draft than the first overall pick? And the Patriots were essentially a lock for it until week 18. Now, we dropped from 1 to 4. It's not that bad. We're still really high up in the draft. We'll still be able to get a good player. It just might not be the exact same player that I hoped it was initially. We're probably not going to be able to snag Travis Hunter like I'm sure a lot of people predicted or projected the Patriots to take. Like, if the Patriots got the first overall pick, I really have no doubt in my mind that they would have just taken a swing on Hunter and then moved on. But I don't know if that's going to be even an option at this point. If you look at the new NFL draft order, it goes in order of this: top 5 picks: the Tennessee Titans, Cleveland Browns, New York Giants, New England Patriots, and Jacksonville Jaguars. That is the top 5 picks in the NFL draft. And luckily, those top 2 teams are probably quarterback needy teams. You can probably expect one or the other of Cam Ward or Shadir Sanders to go 1-2 right there. Boom. So now we're at 3, New York Giants. And Travis Hunter's still on the board. Here's the thing. I think the Giants go out and I think they signed a quarterback in free agency. I do think that New York might snag Hunter there. So if that's the case and the Giants snag Travis Hunter 3rd overall, then I feel like 4th overall, the Patriots are probably going to go tackle. And I can see that probably being Kelvin Banks out of Texas, or maybe Will Campbell out of LSU, depending on who they like more, but I'd probably bet on Banks, and I'm not opposed to that. I mean, honestly, at this point, we know that the Patriots need offensive line help. It was a massive issue this year, but they also need weapons. They also need defensive help. The Patriots need a new team, let's be honest here. But if they lock up a stud tackle early in the draft and then go out and spend some of that money and pay a good wide receiver to come in, this team could rebound, and rebound fast, especially if they hire the right head coach. And speaking of that, it's probably going to be Mike Vrabel. Now, we don't know that for sure, but that's been the rumblings right now. And frankly, Vrabel was the guy that I kind of wanted in the first place. I thought the hiring of Mayo was a mistake in the first place. I never really got it, and I really didn't understand when Robert Kraft gave his explanation for why he hired Jerod Mayo, and all he really said was, we had a great trip to Israel a couple years ago. Like, he didn't really give coaching, reasons or whatever. Like, and I'm not saying that Jerod Mayo wasn't a good coach. I'm not saying that he can't be a good coach in the future, but right now he clearly just wasn't ready for it, and obviously the situation that he was thrown into just wasn't fair. So honestly, I'd be happy if we could get Vrabel, and if Vrabel could bring on a good offensive mind with him, that would be incredible. Jerod Mayo's finally gone. The future is essentially wiped clean. We have a franchise quarterback that needs weapons and offensive line and everything else around him to help him succeed, but there's a long way to go until next season, so anything can happen.